Just text me what you want.
What
Thank you
kind
so
of, where are you
much.
going for
All
ice
right.
cream?
Schoolhouse on 28th.
One of my favorites.
All right, we're live.
Mine too.
All right,
We're
we're live.
Steve.
This is one of the times that actually it's the only time each year that the superintendent gets to call the school committee to order. This is the meeting of the Monomoy Regional School District School Committee for Thursday, July 9th. It is 6:32 p.m. This meeting is being held by Zoom pursuant to the Governor of Massachusetts March 12th order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. I'd like to call our meeting to order. And the first order of business is nominations for chair of the school committee. So I'll open it up to the committee for nominations. I believe I see Sharon's hand.
Okay, I'm making the obvious nomination. I nominate our vice chair, Tina Games, to be chair.
So we have a nomination for Tina Games for chair. Is there a second?
I'd second that motion.
We have a second from Mr. Roselio. Are there other nominations? This is the teacher and me, appropriate wait time. Seeing none, I would like to hold a roll call vote. We can start with Jackie, who's in my top corner.
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Tina.
Aye. Aye.
All right,
Aye.
my
Aye,
word
aye,
is now done.
Popeye.
I will turn things over to the chair for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. I will take over here at 6:34 p.m. And before we move into the next item of business, I want to take a moment to recognize our outgoing chair, Jackie. Thank you for a wonderful year of leadership. You were here a little longer than I think you thought you would be. And we thank you very much for taking us through, what was it, 15 months?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's counting? 15 and a half.
But thank you very much for your leadership. So just want
Thank
to take
you.
a moment to recognize you.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
For the applause. Where's my little thing here?
Yeah, really, where'd that go?
There we go.
That's my round of applause.
There's your round. Thank you, Jackie. All right, moving into the next item of business, which would be the vice chair. Could I have a nomination, or I'll open the floor for nominations for vice chair of the, let's see, I got two hands. Jackie.
I'd like to nominate Joanne as vice chair.
All
I
right,
would
so we have
second that.
Joanne and Terry. That was you as a
It
second?
was. I would
Okay.
second Joanne.
Wonderful. Any other nominations? Sharon, was that you waving?
Well, I was going to nominate Joe, but I'm happy with Joanne.
Joanne, close enough, you know.
So are you nominating Joe, or you're not nominating Joe?
No, I'd rather not have a competition.
All right, so anybody else? All right, so we have Joanne Sheehan on the floor for nomination. We have the motion and a second, so we will go around and do a roll call vote, starting with Jackie,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Joanne. You're on mic, or off mic, I mean.
Yes.
Okay, Nancy,
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So that would be unanimous. Joanne, I look forward to working together this year. Yay. All right, let's move into approval of minutes for the June 25th meeting. Was that the 25th or the 26th?
25th.
All right, so the minutes from the last meeting. So could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And that would be Joe. And a second, please.
Second.
I heard a second, but I'm not sure where it came from. Jackie. All right, great. Any discussion? All right, so we're gonna run around and do a roll call again. Jackie,
Aye.
Terry,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So that is unanimous. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I have to abstain. I apologize. I abstain. But the minutes still pass. So moving on to public comment. Do we have anyone here tonight for public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on to recognitions. Dr. Carpenter.
I just have one quick recognition. I would like to recognize Chatham resident Suzanne Taylor for donating an entire Tama Superstar Classic drum set to the Monomoy Regional Middle School Band Program. So thank you, Miss Taylor.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much. Any comments? All right, moving into reports and discussions. The first item under that category is the superintendent evaluation schedule 2-year cycle. And if memory serves me correctly, Joe, I believe that you had offered to lead this discussion. So could I open with you, please?
Yes, indeed. Thank you. I'm hoping to open today a conversation about changing the schedule of our superintendent evaluation. As we all know, the state requires the school committees to evaluate its executive officer. But we have some leeway in how we go about doing that. And the leeway we have depends on the decision of the school committee. We are not required, for instance, to have a yearly evaluation. We can, in fact, move to a 2-year cycle if we deem it appropriate. And I would underscore that, if we deem it appropriate. The state does not have a criteria, a set of guidelines, a checklist, if you will, for how to make this decision. It's really left to the local school committees. But I would suggest there is a reasonable criteria to be made or bring up, and I'd like to go through a couple of different points on this. So if a school committee would move to a 2-year cycle, I think several things need to be in place. One, pretty obviously, you should be discussing an experienced superintendent, someone who has a track record. Second, that track record needs to include time in the district that is making the evaluation. It's not, I don't think, feasible or applicable if someone has been a superintendent for 10 years in one place and has just spent a year in the town that is doing the current evaluations. The experience needs to be in district. Further, maybe even most important, there needs to be, I think, a post-hire school committee. That is, a majority of the people currently serving on the school committee were not involved in the hiring of the superintendent. Further, the superintendent needs to have a record of positive, proficient evaluation going back at least 3 years, going back several years. We need reasonable assurance that the superintendent is going to continue in the district. So I don't think a motion like this or an idea like this, not yet a motion, I don't think an idea like this would be appropriate prior to someone's announced retirement. And a little bit of a leap of faith. We need to have reasonable assurance that the superintendent, who has been doing proficient work and perhaps even better, is likely to continue with that level of proficiency and expertise. all of these points, I think, are accurate and true about Dr. Carpenter. And I would note in particular that the last time we did the evaluation, just a month ago, I noted we had recorded a number of shifts to the exemplary status from proficient, different than we did 2 years ago. So in fact, the last evaluation represented an increase in the approval and appreciation of the superintendent. And one way for us to express that, I think the best way, frankly, is to move to a 2-year cycle. I don't think we should be thinking about voting on that tonight. I think we should open up a conversation about it. Obviously, the superintendent has to be involved, since this would require, I believe this would require a modification of the contract. And we would certainly welcome the public to enter in on this discussion. I think there's some real advantages to this, and aside from saying that we have strong approval of this superintendent. And one of the advantages is that in the time that we are not doing summative evaluations and commentary and so forth, I think we could take the opportunity, and this is separate, but I think we could take the opportunity to make ourselves more familiar with the academic research that is available on superintendent evaluations, make ourselves more familiar with the DESE standards and criteria for superintendent evaluation. I think that it's entirely possible we might find something out there that could improve our work, give us a chance to up our game. As a teacher, I can tell you, I don't mind confessing, whenever I saw somebody doing something well, whenever I saw a good idea, I had no pride at all. I would steal it at the first opportunity. And I think there's some real prospects and some good research that we should make ourselves familiar with. That increase in time can be done when we're typically doing evaluations. So perhaps the committee that looks at the superintendent evaluation might want to go through some of those things and present some findings to the committee that we could look at together. So those are some thoughts about this, and I will listen carefully to what everybody has to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. And Jackie, go ahead. We'll open up discussion. And you're on mute.
Had to find the button. I'm new here. All great points, Joe. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I know that we've been trying to get that on the agenda for a little bit. I think my feedback of listening to you is that kind of the evolution of the evaluation since the beginning of the district. And I think that we have had someone come and speak to us about the actual evaluation before. But I think it's always healthy to revisit that and look at our process. I think this is an excellent job for the super eval subcommittee, because I feel like it's a bigger decision and there's more pieces, and where the way our evaluations run, and we almost off the back of our evaluation, we have to start with goals and watching the progress of those goals, back to back. My vision would be that we would have our subcommittee work on and research and be educated, and then report back to the committee through this year, so that we are prepared to start the new evaluation process the following year, where we would probably still at this point, time-wise, the way I'm understanding it, likely it would be more efficient to just do the way we're doing it this year one more time. And possibly there could be some minimal changes, but that would be fresh and ready to start a new super eval in 2020 22, I believe it would be. So this would be the 2021, excuse me. It'd be the 21-22. I just, from what you're saying, I'm feeling like timing might not work out to have a proposal of what the subcommittee would want prior to when we really need to start the process again. And if not, great, maybe it's something we can do this year, but that was just kind of my feedback. I'm done.
Thank you, Jackie. Terry?
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
My visual has gone back to the Zoom prompter.
Well, I can see you and hear you.
You look great.
Thanks. Well, my voice is the only thing, so I'll try to fiddle with this, but first time I've heard of the idea, so thanks, Joe. Couple of thoughts strike me, and this is right off the top of my head. The superintendent is the key agent of the school committee. We all know that. The one key hire and the one key evaluation is the superintendent. What is leading to, I see some advantages of what has been the case, a yearly evaluation of a superintendent. I technically would kind of remove Scott for the moment because I think he's served us very, very well. So the issue, having several proficiencies in a row, that may be cause for us to take another look. But, first of all, I'd like to know what the average stay of a regular superintendent is. In my day, was somewhere around 3 to 7 years. And with the comings and goings of school committee members, usually you'd have members who might not even get around to evaluating. Secondly, principals are next in this line of responsibility. I think they are evaluated every year by this superintendent. With our little covert experience, which was an extreme that we've never been through, a year can be so long and yet so smooth. I think a year where you're with your superintendent weekly or every other week, with discussions as we've had and goals, you can take a measure of a woman or a guy in that year, and at the end of the year, the 8 people make a judgment. Right at the moment, other than a little bit easier for the members of the school committee, I don't know what the advantages would be, because any strong working superintendent would create those goals. Many of them would be for a year or more, 2 years. And so all those things would take place anyways. But I just think that there's some worth in having your evaluators present every couple of weeks that you're working for, rather than something happen that is way untoward. And you're going to have a separate way to address it and talk. These thoughts are right off the top of my head. I have not thought of this because I kind of thought that even though it's kind of a rush each spring to make certain we do it somewhat correctly, I think there's some worth in that. That's all that struck me at the moment. So subcommittee, I think makes sense and looking into it, and a look that would take a year, but I just think that some of the quick, maybe rough thoughts that I raised, me, I don't know why they all would become advantages, especially when you have a new superintendent and you'd wait a couple of years, and we've been on a good roll. So I think that finishes my thoughts.
Thank you. Joanne? And you need to come off your mic.
Two thoughts. One is absolutely we need re-education, as Jackie said, in doing evaluations, because I think we missed a step. We missed the performance standards. And that's why I think we ended up a little scattered. We should have come together. So I've gone through the, with that woman whose name I never remember, but I went back.
Dorothy Presser.
What is it?
Dorothy Presser.
You got it. I want to call her Claudine. I don't know why. But I went through her 5 YouTube presentations. And so I absolutely agree with Jackie on that. We need to be re-educated in that. The other thing that came to mind too was our strategic plan also has to be demonstrated through our behavior, through the superintendent's behavior, obviously, principals and teachers. So I guess I'm thinking, will 2 years give us the time we need to see those come to fruition in what we're doing in our performance? Those are just two things that I thought of, and I don't have an answer except for, yes, we need re-education.
Thank you, Joanne. Jackie?
Just wanted to reiterate, and I'm not sure if I was clear. I think I'm mumbling these days. I think reevaluating the process of our evaluation is always good, and I would charge the subcommittee with that. That being said, I fully support a 1-year evaluation based on a 3-year contract, and this year in particular is why, because so much changed and happened in this 1 year. And it kind of swayed us away from what the superintendent's goals were. And I just think it captures and you can correct rather than waiting those 2 years. And I get that some goals are larger than that 1 year. And I know that some have carried over from year to year. But I am in support of a 1-year evaluation still. But I do think it's worth exploring with the subcommittee. And, moving forward with that once we have more information. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jackie. Nancy, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. So I have a lot of thoughts going on. So one of them is that when I was listening to Joe speak, I was thinking in my mind that hearing a 2-year evaluation cycle would mean we would set up goals now or in the summertime before the next school year, and they would just be it would be a 2-year process. It wouldn't be necessarily setting up goals or not setting goals now and just waiting and setting goals every other year. Does that make sense? So Joe, can you just clarify that? Are you talking about doing a 2-year goal set, or are you talking about not doing anything until the next summer?
I'm talking about going through the evaluation process that we've just concluded and doing that every other year instead of every year. We would still have goals in place, of course. The superintendent would still have goals. How we set them and when, of course, is up to us. With the COVID situation that we're all dealing with, school committees are being flexible about that and making some decisions to postpone certain things and until the fall, until there's more clarity. But I'm talking about keeping the same process, but expanding it to every 2 years, given what the school committee has said, which is more and more people are deciding that the superintendent is exemplary in his activity. I've never seen the exemplary button pushed as much for a superintendent as I have in this previous go-round. And I think the better expression of that, which is a very strong vote of confidence, is actually to a 2-year cycle, which does allow us an opportunity to explore the research on superintendent evaluations. We may devise an entirely new way to do it. It does take some time, not only for a subcommittee, but the entire committee would have to chew that over for a little bit and be comfortable with whatever process we have. So I think a 2-year cycle better reflects the actual thinking of the committee. And let's keep in mind, we're not turning the superintendent loose to run wild through the towns of Harwich and Chatham. We still have an oversight procedure, et cetera. I don't know what the issue is, but I'm sure I'll have some opportunity to disagree with what the superintendent has said or done at some point, and we'll speak to that. We'll conduct business as normal, in other words. except that the cycle will be a 2-year one, which we do have the authority to do. So I'm proselytizing a little bit and answering your question too, Nancy. Sorry for that.
Yeah, you did. You just took over my total spot.
Yeah, sorry for that, you know.
Madam Chair, if I may
Right.
continue,
Yes, please.
Joe interrupted me. I just needed a short answer, Joe. That's it.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of thoughts then. So since I was thinking of this incorrectly, I agree that it's one of our main jobs. We don't have that many like strict jobs, and that's one of them. And I think it's important that we do. I also think that our superintendent has demonstrated that he has a good track record of the 7 evaluations. Is that what we're up to? I think 7 since he's been hired. So I can see both sides of that. What I would suggest is when we do our new subcommittee assignments and the superintendent evaluation subcommittee is formed, I think it would be a good thing if there's a consensus of the committee that it's something they want to explore, to have the superintendent evaluation subcommittee really explore that and have that conversation with Dorothy and figure out what the process could look like, and then make a recommendation based on that back to the full committee. And then after the decision is made on what we do, then we ask Dorothy to come back again and re-educate the entire committee on the process. So I think that it definitely is worth exploring, because I think it's an interesting concept. And you know, we've tried, and I've tried and over the years, and I've never really fully followed through completely to kind of narrow down that evaluation process to make it how it should be. Joanne and I had a conversation about it as well, but I think it's worth exploring, and I'd like to see more of a what it would look like type of thing.
Thank you, Nancy. Sharon?
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Carpenter. And that is about the teacher evaluations. I tend to look at things systematically instead of particular positions. So I know that in the past, I don't know if it was Harwich and Chatham or the beginning of Monomoy, that teachers that were on master teacher status got evaluated only once every 2 years, but I have no idea exactly where we are on that.
The state evaluation framework has something similar to that. There's, so there, when teachers, get professional teacher status, they aren't evaluated annually. There is an evaluation process that continues, but it really culminates over a 2-year cycle, not an annual cycle.
Okay, so because I look at things systematically, I would be inclined to want to do whatever we're doing for teachers, so we have one thing throughout the system for how people get evaluated. It might, if we did that, it sounds like it's a little bit of a hybrid of what we're talking about here. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Anybody else? Meredith?
So I agree with the fact that we should really look into this. But I think one thing that kind of pops up for me is, being a teacher, I'm and I have professional status. I am on that 2-year cycle. So, but one of the things that always happens is that I have the same evaluator. So I think that's a piece that we really have to look into, because our election cycles are all different. And so it could be, we could, if there's a 2-year cycle, we could all be on the same, on the school committee, but there could be some turnover. And then that would mean that the evaluator wouldn't be the same for both years. So I think that, as I kind of quickly think about this, that's one thing that comes to mind, that, the evaluator has to kind of be the same. And I wonder about that.
Thank you, Meredith. Anybody else? Anybody else? Oh, Terry, go ahead.
Am I on audio now? Can you hear
Yes.
me? This, no reflection on my age, but, and I go back to my original thought because I haven't been really convinced about 2 years is a better deal for everyone. One, it's the prime person that we hire to run the district for the year. Two, I think a year is so busy because one, we don't even meet every week like a lot of school committees do, that the stuff that happens informally by phone, the stuff that happens at our meetings, the documentation we read, and then the goals that we set and the superintendent sets, I think need a yearly review, not 2 years, because I find it difficult sometimes, and I take notes come April, May, or June, looking back to something I'm trying to find in October. That's a little task, and I have a 3-ring binder and the like, but to let that grow for the second year, I just think there's no real reason for that. I think a person in that position, whether it's a town manager or a superintendent of schools, a yearly review and also involved with a COLA promotion salary-wise is something that I think that they all would look forward to at the end of each year. So I guess that kind of, I'm starting to repeat myself 20 minutes ago, but so those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Terry. Anybody else? Joanne?
Just a quick to throw in the mix because I've heard so many good ideas. Could you just add a formative after the first year and then your summative after 2 years? But I have to say, Mary, your point, that just never came through. But I see that. Although not to when I was teaching, we did have a different evaluator every year, and that it was purposeful that we had somebody looking at us. That's a good point. Joe, you got us thinking.
Definitely. Anybody else? And I guess my comment, really, really good dialogue. And I agree with so much of what was said. And I was thinking about this, seeing that it was on the agenda, and a lot happened for us in this school district in just 6 months. And I know that when I was doing the evaluation, I had to really take myself back to that first 6 months and really scratch my head because I was so focused on the last 6 months. So I think for myself, I'm thinking in 2 years, so much can happen. And you kind of want to capture all of that as much as you can and not have it so centered, I think, sometimes on maybe just a one period. So lots of good feedback. I strongly agree for myself that it should go to subcommittee to really kind of hammer this out and then bring it back to the larger committee. So that's certainly my thought. All right, Nancy.
I'm just wondering if we can ask Dr. Carpenter what his opinion is.
Yes, good idea. Dr. Carpenter, we would love to hear from you.
Every minute matters, though.
I would say on some level, I think the intent that Joe brought up, I'm flattered. I appreciate that, and I think the spirit there is nice. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, I think, one way or the other to me. I think we need to have annual goals and move forward annual goals. So, I'll work with the evaluation subcommittee, and we'll kind of report back from there.
Thank you. All right, any final comments? Joe, thank you very much for getting this going. All right, so we'll move that into subcommittees, basically what I'm hearing. So that kind of, I think. All right, so we're going to move on into reports and discussions. Year-end encumbrances. Michael, I think this is you. And let me, before you start speaking, I just want to recognize you because I think this is your first public meeting with us. So welcome,
Yes,
Michael.
thank you very much. So
Glad
this
that
is
you're
my
here.
first meeting, and I really promise I'm not setting a precedent that my 2 agenda items today were like last minute and sent out today. That was I'm going to blame coronavirus for now for that. But in future, I will endeavor to get the papers out before then. So yeah, so this is the prior year encumbrances. So these are goods or services which we've received in FY20, but for one reason or another, we have not yet been able to pay the bill. So we just hold that money over into FY21. So we're still using the FY20 budget to pay for the FY20 goods and services. So we just need your approval to carry those purchase orders, those encumbrances into FY21. The number is a little
Thank
higher.
you very much.
I would just say the number is a little higher than it's been in the past, and it's largely because there have been delays due to coronavirus, and just processing bills and getting deliveries and so on has really been much slower in the last couple of months. And in particular, there is a large encumbrance for unemployment benefit being carried over, and that's because we haven't received the bill since March for our unemployment payments, and we have a sense of how much it's going to be, but it's a bit of an unknown because there's a lot of claims still coming in. The government's still doing a lot of work on those claims, so that's why we're carrying over a significant amount of money, just to make sure we're not coming back to you to help pay the bills when they come in.
Thank you. So you're going to need a vote. Is there any discussion? Anybody have any questions for Michael about what he sent out? Terry?
I just might give us a ballpark grand figure of the total of it all before I vote.
Yeah, of course. I'll tell you exactly how much it is. It is $242,704.80.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Leah?
May I just say that these figures were sent in the packet that I sent out this afternoon. So if you wanted to look at the copies, it's there. You just have to check your email. It was sent. I sent it out late this afternoon, so I apologize.
Thank you. Any other
Definitely
questions?
not. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
It's just, yeah, I was just going to say, it's definitely not Leah's need to apologize because we only sent it to her this morning, but we've just, because of the way we're just like pushing these, because we really have until the 15th to get it done, but this is our last meeting. So we've been just really hammering these, trying to get every single one dealt with as best we can.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for Michael before we move to a vote? All right, so could I have a motion, please, to approve the year-end encumbrances? Nancy? Thank
I
you.
was trying to wait to see if somebody else might put their hand up first, but
You're so good at it.
I move to approve the year-end encumbrances in the amount of $242,704.80.
Second,
And okay, great. Nancy has moved and Joanne seconded. Any other discussion? Oh. All right, so we're going to do a roll call vote. Let's go up to the top here. Jackie?
Aye.
Thank you. Terry?
Aye.
Joanne?
aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
And I'm an aye as well, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, Michael. And
very
now
much.
I'm going to roll back into you for the next item, the Chromebook lease.
Okay, yes. So Jim and I have been working on Chromebooks for, we have a number of rolling leases going to provide a sufficient number of Chromebooks for students. And we've been doing one every year, and this is their annual. So it has been budgeted, and we are planning to lease the Chromebooks over 4 years. And because it's over 3 years, that's why it requires approval of the school committee, at least 2/3. And the plan is to lease these Chromebooks over 4 years to ensure we have enough for our students, and then we start back in the fall.
Thank you, Michael. And I see that Jim Birchfield, our Director of Technology, has joined us. So if anybody has
Hey.
questions or comments regarding the Chromebook lease, Terry.
It's really Jim, I think. It just interests me. due to the COVID and closing our schools and sending kids home with a greater, I would assume, a greater reliance on their Chromebooks, how has our repair, broken, gotta buy extras, gym worked out compared to, let's say, the last couple of years?
Well, I think we're actually in pretty good shape right now. We just did a big callback on all the Chromebooks that had gone out in the spring when we shut down the schools. And thankfully, the amount of damage was minimal. So it doesn't look like we're in bad shape as far as like broken and damaged Chromebooks. We were able to buy some extra ones in the spring with some money that was in my particular in a particular line in my budget. So we bought some extras there as backup just in case that we had some issues with breakage. And with the lease coming up, I think we're going to be all set. We're in pretty good shape, and they've held up quite well.
Thanks, Jim. Good.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Sharon?
This is just because I'm wondering, you probably answered that, but so I see it's 470, and I know we have over 600 at the high school, plus I have no idea, half that amount, I guess, at the middle school. So
yep.
Are you saying that by buying these, we will have enough for every middle and every high schooler for next year?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the 470 is based on a refresh cycle that we've set up on the Chromebook, so that at certain grade levels each year, we get a new batch, but the other grade levels already have theirs from, say, a previous year or the year before that. So the way the whole refresh cycle works, every student 5 through 12 has definitely got a Chromebook assigned to them. And then we have quite a few for the elementary school too. We're building that supply with any extras that we've got.
So since you brought that question up about the elementary school, this is a little bit of a side. Did every child, if we have to go back some work at home like we did this year, did every child have a computer that they could work on for that? Or for their whatever?
So you're asking if every kid took one home? Or
I'm not asking that, but you know, if say a parent has a work computer, but that would be really questionable if their little first grader should be using that. But did everyone have something to get their work done that's going ahead this year that looks good?
Yeah, I mean, so basically what happened was we put out the call to all families and said, if you need one for any reason, let us know and we'll issue one right away. A lot of families just used what they had at home already, but quite a few, quite a few people tried that. And then they said, oh, this is just too much. We're trying to share a computer. And we immediately would just issue a Chromebook to that family. So it worked out pretty nicely. I think we got the Chromebooks out to anybody that needed them. And as far as I could tell, all the families that were going online to do any kind of schoolwork were able to get online to do that.
Thanks, Jim. That's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you. Jackie?
One more question for Jim. Do you happen to know how many Chromebooks we loaned out to the elementary school age students? And then a follow-up to that would be, do you think we have about 50% that we could provide for the elementary school? Or are we working towards a lease, given the times, that would support Chromebooks for all of our elementary age students? Or are we continuing the same lease number that we always have? And should we be increasing that given everything that's going on?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The first part of your question, we issued, I want to say about 150 to 160, somewhere around there, just to the elementary school students. And then at the middle school, I'd have to check on the middle school, but that was, we basically covered every kid there. So, but the elementary, I'd say about 150, 160. And what we're trying to do with the moving everything to a 4-year leasing cycle is we'd like to start at grade 1 and then also grade 5 and grade 9, so that each year we do a new lease, that those grade levels will get a full set. So if you follow that kind of pattern, for a few years, eventually every grade level will be filled out, and every grade level will have a Chromebook for every kid. So it's a little bit of a process. Like it could take several years to really complete it. But I think financially we have to do it that way. And in the meantime, we have carts, filled with Chromebooks at the elementary schools for each grade level. Some grade levels have more than one, depending on their need. So to answer your question kind of in a short way, yes, we're moving towards one-to-one K-12, but it could take us a couple of years to actually get there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, very much. That was perfect. Yeah, it was just the elementary. I don't need to know about the middle and high. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, they're all set. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Michael or Jim? Anybody? So Michael, if I'm understanding correctly, it says potential vote, but I believe you would prefer us to vote tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, if possible, that would be great. The reason just for the urgency was just that with everything that's going on, our vendors are telling us that Chromebooks are disappearing off their shelves very fast. So we're anxious that if we delay too long, we might not be able to get these Chromebooks delivered in time for the start of the school year.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, could I jump in real quick?
Yes.
I thought about this a little earlier, but we actually, I believe, had this approved before, but the vendor that we used for the quote and the approval was not able to get us the equipment until sometime in like December. And so I believe the lease had been approved by the school committee already previously. So basically what we're doing is just asking for a new approval on a different vendor giving us the equipment, actually for less money, which is good too.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Sharon? Is there?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, yes, please. Go ahead.
So I move that we approve this, the 4-year cycle, as Jim just mentioned.
Wonderful. And a second?
I would second that.
All right, so Sharon has made the motion.
Point of
Terry-
order.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Yes, Nancy?
We need to have the amounts and who the contract is with, the lease is with.
Yes, with the motion. Yes, thank you very much. So Sharon,
I move.
do you have,
I think I do. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. I move to approve $105,045 to be paid for Chromebooks to people who get it. Is that the name of it? GDWG?
Yeah, CDWG, yes.
CDWG.
Yeah, and just sorry, and to add to that, the lease is actually through Hewlett Packard Financial Services Company.
Okay. With the lease to Hewlett Packard.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Okay.
help.
okay, so, all right, great. Thank you, Sharon. So you said the amount and you've said the who the lease is the holder. Okay. And then we had the second. Terry, you're still good with your second?
Let me check. Yes, yes.
All right, great. So Sharon and Terry, motion made, seconded. So we're going to do a roll call vote, starting with Jackie.
Aye.
All right, Terry,
Aye.
Joanne. I think she said aye. Nancy,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Meredith,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Tina,
Yes.
off the subject, but thank you, Jim,
Yes.
for reminding us that we did already vote this. And not to go back to the superintendent evaluation, it is a case in point that I raised, that it's awful easy to forget even some key to the tune of 140,000 for 8 people to forget just what has happened in 180 school days. So that was an editorial comment.
And an important one, though. Very, very good. I'm glad you said that, Terry. Very good point. And thank you, Jim. Thank you. All right, moving into section F, subcommittee reports. Do we have anybody with a report? All right, seeing none, we're going to move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Carpenter.
All right, so I think since last we virtually met, we had a nice sort of send-off gathering for Katie and central office, all socially distanced with masks and cake. And it was nice. And I'd like to say that the transition from Katie to Michael has about been as seamless as can be. So it's been nice. Although it does look like Michael is doing a little side gig landing airplanes for Logan at the moment. So we've had some interesting challenges this week that I wasn't even anticipating. Yesterday was a long conversation with a bunch of lawyers trying to figure out who owns Monomoy Regional High School. So at the end of the conversation, I'm not sure that we were able to fully determine that one, but it gets into the solar panel array that we hope to put on top of the high school, which has a 20-year lease for the solar panels, but the school district's lease of the land is a 20-year lease that's out of cycle with the 20-year lease that the solar panels would be. So lawyers are working it out with the town's lawyers, and so the groundbreaking, so to speak, I guess it's hard to say it's groundbreaking if it's a solar array on top of high school, but that's been delayed slightly while that gets worked through. We are deep into a sort of planning for next year, and one of the key drivers in the planning for next year is the budget. And we got some optimistic good news from Harwich, where it seems that they think some of the shortfalls that they were going to have are less, but still appreciable. They had reached out to us to send a revised assessment sheet. So we've sent to the committee that revised assessment sheet. We need not vote on it tonight, but I think Harwich is hoping, or at least the finance director is hoping, that we'll vote on it at an upcoming meeting, so that it becomes more of a concrete number in her budget for the town as they head into a September town meeting. The long and short is we did an assessment as we were looking at a 1/12 budget. This is revising an assessment that takes the assessment that we gave Chatham as they were heading into their town meeting. We actually gave it to both towns as they were heading into their original town meetings. We have backed off of that original assessment that Chatham was using, the $475,000 for the ELA curriculum, which in part, it's not really feasible for us to launch the ELA curriculum for next year, because the professional development that we would need to get that effectively off the ground, we're not in a position in this sort of Zoom, Google Meet distance, social distancing scenario to get that program launched. So it would make more sense to look at launching a new ELA curriculum for next year. So it does, by reducing that $475,000 from our budget, it will decrease Chatham's assessment slightly below what they had voted at their town meeting, and it decreases the assessment that we had already come below 2% in Harwich that much more. So we'll kind of present that at our next school committee meeting But because of that good news, it puts me as the superintendent in a place to take some of the positions that we had pumped the brakes and not filled, based on resignations or retirements, to look at some of those positions and to green light the principals to hire for those, in part because we are going to need more positions rather than fewer positions as we head into the challenges that we're going to have to contend with in a COVID-19 reopening your schools. What is it going to look like scenario? And I'll talk about that briefly, so we'll be going in and hiring an additional secondary math teacher, a secondary ELA teacher, high school elective teacher, and an elementary classroom teacher, along with restoring some clerical support in all of that. So, so we have some hiring that we will be doing that's going to be much better position us to open well when we return to school in the fall. Along that lines, as I mentioned at our last meeting, the commissioner expects that school districts will present to DESE 3 different scenarios for opening. An opening where all of your students are coming back with safety standards in place, that you have about half of your students in classes and half learning remotely, some sort of hybrid scenario where the density is reduced in classrooms, and then a third scenario where everybody is learning remotely. And so we have to flesh out what each one of those looks like. One of the first things that we have been doing, and our facilities folks have been helping us with this week, is really looking at each one of our classrooms. And we have different size classrooms in different buildings, and even some buildings have different size classrooms within the buildings. So for instance, Chatham Elementary School has very large kindergarten classrooms and much smaller, so Miss Maycomer, who's here, Miss Maycomer's room is smaller than a kindergarten classroom. So we're looking at how many students can we fit in each classroom. And one of the things that was in the commissioner's guidance for reopening schools is that there should be a minimum of 3 feet between students in the classrooms. And one of the things that I have emphasized is that we are not going to reopen with a minimum of 3 feet between individuals. So we've been going into each classroom space and looking at it to say, how many seats can we have? How many student desks can we have in this to have children spaced 6 feet apart, not 3 feet apart, and have been establishing that in every single classroom in all of our buildings to get a feel for what sort of class sizes do we build a middle school schedule around or a high school schedule around, given the rooms that we have. We also will, in the upcoming week, and this will be sort of an ongoing series of meetings and discussions, we'll be bringing various stakeholders together to discuss what the reopening will look like and to sort of brainstorm as a group. Some of that will involve sort of what's called impact bargaining with our unions on reopening. And I will need 1 or 2 school committee volunteers to be part of those discussions and that can report back. And my suggestion might be, as you're thinking about what sort of subcommittees do you want to be on, those that want to be on the negotiating subcommittee, here's a wonderful opportunity for you to get some experience on a negotiation as we negotiate with all of our staff what each one of those scenarios looks like as we reopen. So, I would love some volunteers to come forward in the next week, because we'll start those conversations probably as early as next Monday. And let's see what else I have here. I sent out a letter to or an email to our staff a couple days ago, just just sharing that that I do anticipate that we will be reopening with students coming into our buildings, and then just sharing with them that I'll be stressing and have stressed to our principals and our facilities folks that we want to strive for that 6 feet, but striving for 6 feet means that that we might need to clean out Miss Maycomer's room and several other people's rooms just a little bit. And so we we have gone into a couple example classrooms and just looked at what needs to come out of the classroom to allow for the spacing that would really be required to come back safely. So we have our facilities director working with Michael, where we can anticipate seeing some pods likely behind each one of our schools as things that are in classrooms need to come out and get stored. And then there's some things that teachers have that that need to be stored in like a room in the building where they have access to them versus some furniture that can get stored and set to the side. But I do think it's something, I think we can achieve this. I think it's going to take a lot of cooperation and a lot of conversations, but we are quite blessed as a school district having very reasonable class sizes going into this sort of planning compared to to some school districts in the state that they're saying, hey, we can't open up and have all of our students come back with 3-foot spacing. That's not a challenge we have if we, of course, go in and clear out the space so that so that it largely becomes desks that are spread out in our classrooms. And last but not least, we also have been I think one of our challenges in planning for next year is both at our middle school and at our high school. It's very empty up in the office areas because we have Adam O'Shea has become the principal of the middle school, and the assistant principal office is now sitting empty. And at the high school, Jen Police is at the high school with 2 assistant principal offices sitting vacant. So we have at the middle school, we were lucky to hire Abby Dudley, who's coming to Monomoy from Oregon to be the assistant principal at the high school. One of the conversations I had with Adam when he brought Abby's name forward to me, I said, Adam, do we see principal material in Abby one day? Because I think that's one of the things I want to always emphasize is, let's make sure that we have assistant principals who someday we can see being, growing and mentoring into principals. And Adam's like, definitely in having conversations with Abby, I think she's just fabulous. She comes to us with experience as a special ed director in her school and a dean of students. She's got family connections to Cape Cod and is really excited to have her family move back home, so to speak, to the East Coast and the Massachusetts area. And then finally at the high school, what we will be doing in the short term, because I'm a little worried what athletics is going to look like. Karen Gilmet, who we did go and get principal certified, Karen will be helping out in one of the roles up at the high school until we know that athletics are often running. But we also they had a hiring committee that has put forward the name of one individual to me who I'll be talking to tomorrow at 10:30, and hope I can convince him to join our team as a assistant principal. But high school history teacher David Alexander has been recommended for that role. Personally, I had called up Dave and just said looking forward to having a conversation with him. Dave's one of the teachers I could definitely see being a great assistant principal, a great principal down the road, and I'm quite glad to have Dave potentially join us. I'm hoping we can have a good conversation. I'm sure we will, and I think he'd be a great asset to Jen, and then we can start planning both at the middle school and high school, and both those administrative teams have their hands full, because typically this year, this time of each year, the schedules would have already been done. So it's, there's a lot of planning that has to happen, including potentially schedules on how school operates under 3 different scenarios that have to happen in each one of those buildings. So it'll be a very busy mid-July through August for those teams. So congratulations to Abby and to David. That's it for me.
Fabulous. Wow. Some good news in there. I'm excited. Let me ask Dr. Carpenter, for the 2 volunteers, I know you said they could reach out to you within the next week. Would it help you if we had some people, if you're interested here tonight, to just go ahead and commit? Or would that work for you? Or do you want to wait it out a week?
Oh, that would work for me. I'm still waiting to see hands just waving around.
Anybody want to, Terry?
I'll volunteer. I volunteered earlier in the fall for the negotiating team, so.
I'll volunteer too.
All right, and Meredith. All right, perfect. You got your 2 volunteers, Terry and Meredith. Just two quick things, Dr. Carpenter, for clarification. With the assessment you were referring to, so that will be on our agenda for the next meeting for a vote. That's the 7/23 meeting.
Right. So I think that what Harwich is looking for, Michael and I shared a number with their finance director so that she has something to plan with. I think she and the town is hoping to have the committee vote so they can sort of lock that number in. And typically we would vote a number that would that sort of locks us into a budget. I do think that there are some unknowns still, even that Michael could even talk about, but the state numbers on when it comes to what Chapter 70 is going to look like is still a bit of a wild card out there. So there's so there's a lot of things that are up in the air, but I think what we have down for an assessment is a pretty solid number that Harwich can plan off of. And I think it's a number that I think would fit well within where they see their potential budget as a town.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions for the superintendent? All right, seeing none, then we will move into action items. We've already taken a couple of votes there, and the presentation of warrants. Just for clarity also, before we, I guess, finalize our subcommittee assignments, Joanne, you're still signing on our behalf, is that correct? For the warrants? Okay. And that's a yes. All right, thank you. So
Yes.
Thank you. So the presentation of warrants, Joanne, because we're meeting remotely, has been signing on behalf of our school committee. So thank you very much. Moving into public comment. This is our second public comment. Anyone from the public? Oh, Terry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Tina, just a clarification with Joanne or yourself. I thought about a month ago, Katie mentioned, based on something that I didn't get, that we were all invited every 2 weeks to come over at the admin to sign the warrants. So that's what I did. I mean, I wouldn't have had to if I thought we were really switching from just Joanne to X number of us going. So what is the process?
Thank you for that question. Michael, could we put that to you?
Yeah, of course. So my understanding was we're still having your representative Joanne come in to sign for them, but I can double check and look back and see if Katie had changed that I know there had been talk of her putting out tables with all the warrants available to sign for individuals. Yeah,
That did take place on the front door. And all the ones that went all the way back to March, which represented
right.
this many warrants. So I happened to go over and, it took about 40 minutes to sign all of them. Then I went 2 weeks ago or a week and a half, thinking that was the routine, so.
All right, you can give me like a day or two and I'll double check on it and see what's happening. Although I see a couple of hands, hopefully.
Yep,
people
we got a
have
couple of hands. So let me start with Nancy.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that's because we needed to sign them by the end of the year because those were all FY20 warrants. Whereas what Joanne was doing was kind of doing it on our behalf in between meetings. And then Katie would bring them to the meetings and we would all sign them. But because we haven't had any meetings, we haven't been able to sign them. So she needed to have a majority of the committee sign them before the end of the year to be able to finalize FY20 budget. So Michael, you might want to look into what you're going to need from us if how long we continue the Zoom meetings. If you'll need us to come in on maybe it's if we can schedule a time to come in every few weeks, because it was a lot of stuff to sign. It took probably about 45 minutes to go through it all.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, I'll check.
Joanne.
I go in, well, I used to have the car come and pop the hood and I would stick my head in her trunk and sign, which my neighbors looked a little askew at me. But the last time I went in and there was just a desk set up there, but Terry, you had already signed as well. So we were one signature up, but I sign every week is how it is. Usually Wednesday.
Thank you, Joanne. Leah, did you had your hand up?
Nancy stole my words. I was just going to say, Katie and I had discussed it, and it was just to get caught up on the FY20 warrants, so that as we go to file them, it's got the appropriate signatures.
Thank you. Sharon?
Yes, I'm requesting that we each get emailed these, and that way we can read them all and have a majority at least come in and sign them. But as school committee members, we should get all this information so we're financially, fiscally responsible for what's going on.
Yeah,
I believe, I mean, we do get everything via email every week, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just reiterating this because we have a new business person.
Okay. All right.
Oh, and it comes from Leanne.
Right.
Yeah, I think she sent them out this week.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other comments about that, questions? All right, and thank you, Joanne, for doing that on our behalf until we need to step in and get caught up. But Michael, it sounds like you're going to check and let us know if anything changes.
I will do.
Thank you. All righty. All right, so public comment. Anybody, I don't see anyone, but does anybody need to speak or would like to speak? Seeing none, we are going to move into adjournment to executive session, actually. So adjournment to executive session pursuant to MGL 30A, Section 21, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and negotiations for union contracts coming out for adjournment only. So if I could have a motion, I'm sorry, Leah.
I just wanted to say, after you adjourn, please stay on this site, and we are going to stop streaming and recording and ask all non-members to exit, just so you know.
Great, thank you. So if we could have a motion, thank you. So if we could have a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
All right, thank you, Nancy, and Jackie seconded. So we're going to do a roll call vote. Jackie?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Joanne?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Meredith?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that's a unanimous. And so our public meeting is adjourned at 7:46. So thank you to whoever is not moving on. Thank you.